It's a very good morning to the Gelding on a very rainy day in Melbourne, Gelding, and lucky we're at the Flemington track because at least we can be assured that a track will be as good as it possibly can be.
Yes, good morning, Professor. Good morning, listeners. A bit of a change in the weather, Professor. Had kind of a bit of a lovely week, and last weekend was lovely, and apart from a bit of wind. Excuse me. But today, woken up, been raining all night. A bit of hail expected today, Professor. So maybe a good day to be sitting at home, watching the races during the afternoon and getting ready for the footy tonight.
Yeah, exactly, Gelding. That's my theory. I'm going to be in the lounge room with the TV on, just going backwards and forwards. There's some AFLW on, Gelding, so that'll keep you entertained.
Yes, it will.
I think AFLW is more entertainment at the moment.
Yes, I kind of agree, Professor. And I'm just wondering when it's going to start appealing in the Professor's Parlay. Because last season you had it spot on.
Yes, Gelding, I did have a look today. There are a couple of... We're only 3 games in, Gelding. Makes it a little bit difficult to predict because of the difference in the teams. And that's why I've gone for a different league other than the AFLW this week.
So you're waiting for a bit of form to see which way you're going to go on it. But do you wait for too long and all of a sudden the season's over?
Well, that could be right, Gelding. It's only a 10-game season.
Yeah.
We're almost halfway through, Gelding.
Well, I was going to say you're almost a third of the way through, Professor. So I'll give you 4 weeks of looking at the form, and then you can judge. So I'm expecting a few AFLW teams to be picked.
Well, blink and you'll miss it, Gelding.
Exactly.
All right, Gelding. Races are at Flemington. It's a 10-race card. The first is at 12:10 p.m, so you'll have to be on your bike. I think one of my selections is in one of the very early races on the card. And the last is a very nice 5:25 to get you home in time to watch the news.
Beautiful, Professor. Come when it's my turn for the tips and putting the bets on. You seem to like something in the first.
Gelding, I always start with race 1. That's the trouble. I always start looking at race 1 first. I work my way through in numerical order.
Okay. Can't you be like the Chinese and start at the back?
Well, I'll try that next week, Gelding.
Okay. Oh, when it's your turn.
Exactly right, Gelding. Exactly right. All right. So group racing's returned, Gelding. There's one Group 1, 2 Group 2s and a Group 3. So it's a lovely day of group racing at Flemington. The feature race is race 8, the Makybe Diva Stakes, a Group 1 for 3-year-olds plus over 1,600 metres. And as we were talking off air before the program started, Gelding, worth $750,000. Shouldn't a Group 1 be worth $1 million, Gelding?
Professor, but let me hop on the soapbox. Yep, we're back on it. Surely, if you're going to have the best racing and want the best horses and all that, it's got to be a minimum of $1 million. That should be the lowest for a Group 1, with the winner taking home. And if you make it $1 million race, well, the winner gets about 600,000, which is a good prize, definitely. And that, but look, I think there should be less Group 1 racing, and probably increase the prize money on them. Like, here we have this race worth 750,000. And as we were talking, Sydney has 3 Group 2s. They're all worth 300,000. So I don't know. Maybe for some of the bigger races, not the Melbourne Cup and the Golden Slipper and all that, but, some of these other races that are worth 2 or 3 million, well, maybe spread it around a bit. But anyway, or have less Group 1s.
Yeah, good sentiments, Gelding. Anyway, the track's a soft 6 now. Showers during the day. It's certainly raining here. Is it raining where you are, Gelding?
Yeah, it's been raining fairly consistently. Not ultra heavy, Professor, but enough to make a effect on the ground. And of course, I presume what you're going to say is once they get on it, do they cut it up? And if there's rain during the day, who knows what it will be. Are you
Exactly.
expecting a downgrade?
Yeah, I'm expecting a downgrade probably mid-race meeting, Gelding. It wouldn't surprise me. And now we'll give the warning to punters to maybe watch the first couple of races before you start investing some of the larger sums that you might be doing, and do it wisely and well. But just to see how the track's actually playing out.
Well, that's good advice, Professor. Just as we always say, look for a pattern of racing. I noticed that the rail's in the true position. So, sometimes they like to come down hard on that fence, or sometimes they like to get out in the middle of the track. So just see where these horses are coming from early on. But with rain during the day and it gets a bit cut up, sometimes it's a bit harder to make up ground, Professor. So, let some of the jockeys hopefully beware, especially one of my bets, Professor.
All right, Gelding, your turn to give us your two best bets for Flemington races today.
Professor, look, as we return to the spring racing, I'll be looking for what I regard as the better horses on the program. My first bet, probably one of the most exciting horses racing today, and also probably racing in Australia. That's race 4, number 1, Growing Empire. That's a Kieran Ma trained 3-year-old Zoo Star, Professor. And we've had one of them, and we like one of them.
Very nice, Gelding. Very nice.
Yeah, this horse has just been in fantastic form. Looking at the Coolmore Stakes, Professor, as its targets, 4 starts for 3 wins. Last start at Caulfield, won quite easily over 1,200 metres. It's back to 1,100 metres today in a listed race, Professor. Drops from a Group 3 1,200 to a listed 1,100. Its 3 wins have been over that, but look, I think Karen Ma's just keeping this horse ticking along beautifully. For Yulong Investments, Professor, and with the Coolmore on Derby Day being the major target for it, but I think it just may be good for some of these other 3-year-olds in the field, Professor. I did notice number 10, the Chauvinist, is running in this, which we know a horse that's got a bit of form around that. So, again, we'll be interested to see how that horse goes. But I think Growing Empire just may be too good for both of them, Professor. Look, it's round about $1.90 at the moment, Professor. But look, with this rain around, of course, horses really aren't known. A lot of the form's not known on a heavy track, given how it's going. If you wait, you may get even money. And for me, it's just a good start in the parlay bets, I think.
Yeah, Gelding, just before you move on, the Chauvinist's got some interesting form, I see. Ran in a 2-year-old maiden at Ballarat and ran 3rd.
Yes.
Beaten by what we think is a very good horse.
Oh, it's a horse that we rate, Professor. I don't know what Peter Moody thinks of it, but he seems to be coming on board on it. But
it's a coat hanger, Gelding. It's a coat hanger.
Yeah. Just for the listeners, we are talking about our own horse that beat the Chauvinist, Savvy Rocker. And we got an update from Peter Moody during the week. And here we are. We're just back in training, Professor. He's talking about a spell already to get some spring weather on his back.
Yeah, I know.
At least give us a run or 2 or 3.
Or 4 or 5.
Yeah, but
Gelding, the Chauvinist's been running since it ran 3rd in that race.
It has, and won 3 races since then, Professor.
Yeah, pretty good form, Gelding.
It's pretty hard to win money when you're sitting in a barn, isn't it? But look, as we said in that race, Professor, it'll be good to see. These horses are, some of the better horses. High octane, stay focused, doubling down. So I just think Growing Empire out of this field will be the horse that will be going on to bigger and better things, and probably, in the Coolmore, and one will probably be following, Professor. The second tip, I've gone for the main race, the Makybe Diva Stakes over 1,600. Professor, I've gone for number 8, the Sistina, trained by Waller, to be ridden by McDonald. Yulong Investments, again, brought this horse from overseas. Has fantastic form, Professor. It's a Fastnet Rock 7-year-old. It's only had 16 starts for 7 wins, 4 seconds and 2/3, Professor. Yulong Investment paid a lot of money for this horse. McDonald has come down from Sydney to ride it, very strangely, regarded as the best jockey in Australia. He's come down, he's taken this ride and one other, whereas up in Sydney he would have had 10 rides in, could probably make more money in Sydney today, but has come down for this, chasing the Group 1. This horse won its last start over Group 1 in Group 1 class, beating Sue Gotchu, Samana, and also Fangirl, Professor, a couple of weeks ago. Look, it's going to be interesting. Up against Pride of Jenny and Mr. Brightside. You've got Pinstripe that won the Group 1 down here last week. McDonald was very critical of other jockeys when he was riding their Sistina, when Pride of Jenny beat it by some, 10, 15 lengths up in Sydney in the main race up there. So I think he's got something to prove here. I'm not sure he'll let Pride of Jenny get so far out in front today. And Pride of Jenny has to improve a little bit from its last start. I noticed the Mars Stable reported it had a bit of a temperature after its last run, so hopefully it will improve. Mr. Brightside's just a great horse, will be there. As it always is. Pinstripe, best career run last start. Hopefully can measure up again. You've got Antino. So, look, a hard race, Professor, but I'm hoping that McDonald can have some success on Vicestina in the Group 1, and, we can be well on our way. Now, Professor, what do you like?
Well, as foreshadowed, Gelding, going very early in race 1, the Wear On Stakes, a benchmark 78 for 3-year-old horses and above. 1,100 metres is the journey, Gelding, and I like in this one, horse number 4, Nadal, coming out of barrier 7. It's had 6 starts for 1 win and 2 placings. Now, that doesn't sound all that impressive, 17% win rate, 50% place rate, but it certainly had its task set for it, Gelding. It's run in 2 Group 1s and a Group 2 after its maiden win. So I can see why it might not have the best of runs at the moment. Certainly, we could say it's back in class at a benchmark 78, Gelding.
Well, yes, Professor, certainly comes back. I would propose that you like the trainer-jockey combination.
Jamie Carr and Kieran Maher, yes, Gelding. That was eye-catching, might I say.
Yes.
Eye-catching. Listen, it ran 6th in the Coolmore, beaten by osmosis 3.5 lengths. Now, that's not a bad pedigree to be putting into this race.
I think, yes, Professor, the Coolmore is one of the toughest races in the spring. And as, I was alluding, you're looking at horses like Growing Empire going to this year's, like last year's was a very, very good addition, and to run so well in it. Kieran Maher obviously must think highly of it.
Yeah. Well, the rest of the history is Gelding. It ran 3rd in the Group 2 Run to the Roses at Rose Hill 12 months ago, only beaten half a length. And then it ran in the Group 1 Highway over 1,500 metres, which I didn't probably think it was suited to. Ran 11th, beaten 3.5 lengths. So, being beaten in Group 1 company by 3.5 lengths, is not a disgrace by any means.
Professor, I like it, and I know I had a look at it, and we'll certainly be having a little on it. Another one of your favourites in there, which I was surprised you went over, of which you've had a very, very good collect for the listeners previously in Wolfie, Professor, and you've just you've jumped off and onto Nadal. So
well, the trainer jockey combination got me, Gelding, and then looking at the form, it was just too hard to go past. Currently showing $4.20 and $1.90, Gelding. Might start a little bit longer than that, so very good odds for each way punters.
Yes, I like it, Professor. I agree with you completely.
My second selection, Gelding's in the race 7 Let's Elope Stakes, the Group 2 for mares 4-year-olds and above over 1,400 metres. And I like in this race, Gelding, horse number 10, running by, coming out of barrier 12. It's had 12 starts for 4 wins and 4 placings, so a 33% win rate, 66% place rate. Earlier in the year, Gelding, it ran second in the Group 3 Mannerism Stakes. It was only beaten 1 3/4 lengths. Then it ran second in the Group 3 Matron Stakes at Flemington, beaten half a length, Gelding. It won its last start at Caulfield over the same distance. Very good sectionals, Gelding. I think this one's going to go very well today. It won second up previously, so it's got second up form. Currently showing 5.50 and 2.20, Gelding.
I like it, Professor. I like it.
One of the more established riders in the saddle, Gelding, Johnny Allen.
Yes. Trained by
Kieran Maher. So you and I are hoping that Kieran's in for a treble today.
Yeah, it's well, Professor. There's a reason why we're tipping that. Like Kieran Maher is a Victorian leading trainer and is Australia wide, right up there with Chris Waller. And surprisingly, 3 of our tips are Kieran Maher and one's Waller. So yeah. It's nothing wrong going with the bigger stables, Professor.
No, you're quite right there, Gelding. So my 2 for the day is race 1, horse number 4, Nadal, race 7, horse number 10, running by. And now let's turn to the Professor's Parlay. Last week, Gelding, Penrith Panthers beat the Gold Coast Titans, Brisbane Lions beat Carlton, and is Estriella still running?
Well, Professor, a big fan of Blake Shin. A big fan of Blake Shin, and would gladly have him riding the horse. And just looking at some of his rides during the week, he was fantastic. Rode some beautiful races yesterday at Geelong. I just don't think Estrella last week was one of his better rides, Professor. This horse gets out in front and leads, and what does he do? He sits 3 wides and lets Mornington Glory glide up and lead. And what happens, Professor? Mornington Glory stays in front and wins. 1,000 metres around Moonee Valley. 3 wide.
It was more than 1,000 metres, Gelding.
Well, yes. Yes. The winner ran 1,000.
Yeah, yes. Estriella ran more than 1,000.
Yeah. Beaten by how much?
Not much.
No, that's not a length in 4th position, Professor. Maybe something for the judge to consider. Who doesn't believe the jockeys have any effect on the race, but that certainly was. And
well, that was racing last week, Gelding.
That's racing, Professor. We've moved on.
Yeah, we have. All right, so let's move on to this week's parlay. Currently, we're 17 of 36, Gelding, so we're 47%. Still toying with getting back to 50%. I'd like to get back there, but I'm happy with 47%. This week, we go to Flemington Race 8, horse number 8, Via Sistina, for all the reasons you mentioned before. And the other 2 legs of the parlay, I did look at the AFLW Gelding, but I just shied away a little bit. I just still don't know enough about the form to be comfortable with it, but certainly the Premier League, I'm happy with that. And the 2 I've gone for today, Gelding, are Manchester City to beat Brentford. Manchester City currently in number 1 spot. They've won 3 from 3, a +7 goal difference. They're playing Brentford, who are 6th. They've won 2 out of 3, Gelding. The things that I look for, though, +1 goal difference, so they might have won 2, but the goal difference isn't all that good. They lost to Liverpool, which is really the only good team they've played. They've played the team that was second last, Southampton, and the team that's 16th, Crystal Palace. They're their 2 wins, Gelding. Now, if they had beaten Arsenal or Spurs or somebody like that, I'd perhaps be a little bit fearful, but no, I think Manchester City will beat Brentford, Manchester City at home. And let's parlay that into Liverpool at home to beat Nottingham Forest. Liverpool second, same pedigree as Manchester City, Gelding. They've won 3 from 3, a +7 goal difference. Nottingham Forest 9th, 1 win and 2 draws, so they haven't been beaten, but another +1 goal difference. Their only victory against Southampton again. Everybody's beating Southampton. So I don't like that form. So the parlay, race 8, horse 8, Via Sistita into Manchester City to beat Brentford, into Liverpool to beat Nottingham Forest, Gelding. And Gelding, I was looking at Flemington just before we go. A 1,400 metre race 2, a listed race.
Yes.
I looked at that and thought, there could be a horse that you and I are both closely connected with. That would be a perfect race for it, wouldn't it?
I would have thought so, Professor, but let's wait and see. As I said, Professor, as I said, you sit there, and as an owner, it can be very frustrating, can't it? Sitting there looking at races, and you just wonder why, but not to be. But talking about that would have been a very nice race for Savvy Rocker. And Professor, look, I think it's down to 7 runners already.
Yes.
So I would have thought ideal race for that, but also got a slight interest in one up in Eagle Farm, Professor.
Oh, yes. Which horse is that, Gelding?
Yes, Drop the Mic, Professor, is again racing in a race 2 grades above its rating, but and is very big odds. But
so it's up in class, Gelding. Can we expect a good each way bet?
Yeah, I'd probably go more
heavy
the
on
place.
Heavy on the place?
More the place than the win, Professor. Maybe a 1-4 or something like that value. It's $26 and probably should be, because it is 2 grades above its class. But I think getting the run looking at a 1,400 in about 3 weeks' time, Professor, which seems to be his type of distance. But anyway, we won't comment any further on the choice of races there, Professor.
Well, maybe a question for another day, Gelding, but selection of races by the trainer is a very important thing.
Would have said facts of training, very important you get your horse fit, and very important you can do that. But just as important for a trainer is the selection of the race and the selection of the jockey, I would have thought.
All right, Gelding. Well, that's a wrap for today's That's Racing. So until next week,